started to sell marijuana medically because that was a thing at that point. Norcos, Opanas, they don't have those anymore.
I know Opanas. My girlfriend's told me about those extensively.
Yeah, they're very,
Very.
I don't want to say anything.
No, they're strong.
Yeah, they're very strong. It's like an oxy, but a different kind of high. So it's just a strong.
Welcome to Peggy's Recovery Corner. This is a recovery podcast. Recovery from what? Recovery from mental health, from addiction, from alcoholism. And you know what? Recovery from many different things. I want to have all kinds of guests that are in recovery, recovering, or recovered. Doesn't make a difference to me. We always want to hear from humans that are living better lives or living their best lives that have transformed and changed completely. Before we get started with my guest today, I would like for you to please, if you could, subscribe to the channel. We are on my Pej Interventions YouTube, as well as any other platform that displays or shows any type of podcast or plays podcast in an audio form or visual form. And then on top of that, too, if you would like and share this with a lot of people, we want to put a lot of hope out into the universe. Today, my guest is Michael. Welcome to the corner, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We've talked for years about having you on here.
Yeah.
I think it's been a hell of a journey for yourself, just even in the recovery that you have. How long are you sober right now?
6 years.
Okay, 6 years sober. I've known you a long time. We both actually got sober in the same recovery center.
Yeah, that's true. Only one that kept me sober.
Yes, which was a Persian recovery center.
It was.
And the man that ran the place, God rest his soul, he passed away almost exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to delve into your past a little bit and know about you, where you were born, your upbringing, and then get into the other stuff, the nitty gritty and everything, and then get into the recovery.
Sure.
aspect.
Okay, so I was actually born in Italy, Florence, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, like, I know a lot of people that are in the recovery world. I often used to resent people that say, oh, I had a perfect childhood. I had anything but a perfect childhood. My parents constantly fought when I was a child, right? Just going at it, at each other. And so eventually my mother and father separated and we moved to the States, to the East Coast, New Jersey.
Oh, was there any siblings or anything? Or
Nothing, I'm an only child.
Only child, okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey. I said I would be transparent, so I want to mention I did go through some abuse, physical abuse, maybe some mental abuse by my parent, my mother, but I love her today. I've made amends with her. We're on good terms. I love her to death. But I said I would be, without offending her, I do.
Both Persian parents?
Well, my father stayed in Italy, yes,
okay.
And he was Persian too. Yeah.
Okay, but mom's Persian.
Yeah,
okay.
And then on top of that, I went to a Catholic school growing up until the 8th grade, which was weird. But
how did you end up in a Catholic school?
Well, because we didn't have we didn't have a green card or anything.
Oh, okay.
So I had to go to Catholic school. I couldn't go to public school.
Uh-huh.
And it was weird because I was the Persian guy in Catholic school.
Right.
Can I move this mic back?
You can do whatever you want with the mic as long as
yeah.
you're talking into it and I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So, and then after that, though, I went to public school for high school. Mm-hmm. And I was heavily bullied there. And I know people talk about racism and being bullied. Mm-hmm. It's like getting beat up, gum in my hair, sitting alone in the lunchroom, stuff thrown at me all the time, books, reports stolen, ripped up.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I've heard.
I can relate.
I've heard you talk about being bullied. Yeah, it's weird being, Middle Eastern in certain parts of the United States. Mm-hmm. But anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said northern Jersey?
My geography isn't that good. It was the area was close to New York.
Okay.
So what is that? It's embarrassing.
I was just there
a
few weeks ago. I think that would be like Vernon or anything like around those parts. Is that what you're
like Newark area?
Newark, okay, yeah.
Close to Newark.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, maybe I don't even know my own geography.
It's all right.
Okay, because Vernon's really north, I believe. All right, so then as time went, like, were you a good student in school?
I was okay. I would get B's mainly, a C or an A once in a while, but I was pretty average. Not bad.
Did you have a lot of friends growing up?
No, growing up, I only had like one or two friends, always.
So were you kind of a loner?
Yeah. Oh, I spent a lot of time isolated. And actually, my addictions started very early on in life.
How old?
Like, I would say since I was born, just addiction to comic books.
Oh, okay. Addiction to other things.
Because it's the same thing.
Material thing. Yeah.
So I was addicted to comic books, television. I would watch 8 hours of TV a day usually,
Yeah.
just to escape, right?
Right.
So, which is what it is all about. So yeah, I was very isolated, spent a lot of time by myself, always the only person in my own corner, I felt like. And I didn't have any siblings. I did have some cousins I grew up with that I'm still close to.
Did you ever act out as a kid?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How old were
I was
you
a
when you
problem
acted?
child, which is why I can understand where some of the discipline came in.
And why do you think you were a problem child? Is it because of the abuse, the
Well, I feel
bullying,
like-
all that stuff?
That too, but that contributed to all that stuff. So it was there anyway.
Right.
I think my acting out was just my way of trying to control things in my environment, be the center of attention when I wasn't given the attention that I thought I deserved. Because also I didn't grow up with my father close to me. I would see him once or twice a year growing up. He was still in Italy.
So it was just you and mom.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when did you first start, or what brought you to substances, and what were the substances in the beginning?
So it just started with classic marijuana.
Right. Which is typical for many.
Yeah, I came to, at 15 years old, my father moved from Italy to Orange County, and I came to live with him. So I went to high school. I went to Elisa Niguel, actually. And
It seems that a lot of Persian kids that went to Aliso Niguel High School in South Orange County ended up on pretty dark paths.
yeah, I guess
Although
so.
it's a really good school.
I was going to say that was going somewhere else.
It's a great. No, I've actually spoken to the student body there many times. I've gone with an organization that would bring us to talk to high schoolers. And, you know, I mean, every high school is going to have a lot of bad seeds or bad apples or people that are experimenting and things like that. But the Persian kids that I know that went through there, a few of them ended up in some of my homes and things like that. They were troubled,
Yeah,
very troubled.
yeah. So to go back to your question, I started smoking weed, hanging out with stoners,
What age exactly?
15 or 16.
15 or
Right
16.
when I got here.
Okay.
It was just so prevalent. And the first time I got high, like I used to smoke weed and not get high, right? Like a couple times I did it.
Like you did it wrong, or you didn't know
I
how
guess
to
I
do it?
didn't inhale it really,
Yeah.
or like I didn't hold it in long enough or whatever. But I was in a car that was heavily hot boxed, and then it was like an acid trip my first time, like things moving frame by frame for a little while.
Wow.
In my peripheral and high for hours and just in a different world. And I fell in love immediately. I was like, this is the escape I need.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So then it was weed, and what else?
After a little while, my friends would sometimes do coke. So I would do coke sometimes. I enjoyed coke, but it wasn't. I liked weed better than coke. I know that's kind of weird, but I liked it because coke is an extreme dopamine high, right?
Yes.
So, but I still liked weed better.
Sure.
Because it has that like out of almost psychedelic, but not fully psychedelic.
Right.
So yeah, I liked weed better, and then obviously mushrooms. I've done mushrooms like a dozen times.
Were your grades declining when you were doing all this experimenting?
Yeah, I ended up doing a program called Fresh Start my senior year. I don't know if you know what that is. It's just to
I
get
remember the name.
it's just to get your diploma, basically.
Okay,
So you can go to community.
They had
college.
something else when I was, because I'm a little bit older than you,
right?
but similar stories. I ended up in one of those programs.
Yeah, it happens. I'm just getting
Did
stoned
you
all day.
finish regular high school, or did you go to continuation?
No, regular high school.
Okay.
Regular high school, Lisa Niguel.
Did you finish on time?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And then was the plan to go to college, university?
I did go to Saddleback
You went
on
to
and off for many years. I actually got banned and expelled from Saddleback, actually.
Acting out?
Eventually. I was just tweaking it on bars at the time. This is much later. But
So you were in college on drugs.
Oh yeah.
Now,
That's jumping ahead, but yeah.
so what, yeah, as far as it was cocaine and weed and then alcohol too?
I would drink at parties, but I never liked alcohol.
Okay.
I did end up drinking alcoholically at the end of my addiction, but up until when I was using drugs, I didn't really drink, just at parties.
During any of this time, had you ever seen a doctor or been diagnosed with anything?
No, at that time, I didn't really see doctors yet. I didn't need to. But after high school, though, I did move to Sweden for 4 years.
And why was that?
My father decided to move to Sweden, and I was living with him, and I had really no one to live with. And I was going for a 6-month break to travel Europe, found a girlfriend in Sweden, and stayed there for 4 years.
Okay. So then you stayed for 4 years and then that didn't work out?
No, I ended up getting banned from the Schengen countries, including Sweden, for 4 years because I was a drug dealer there, and I made my money playing poker and selling weed mainly, or whatever drugs I could get my hands on.
And does Sweden frown on people selling drugs in
Oh
the
yeah,
country?
it's like it's gnarly. I was facing 4 years, but something happened where they forged a signature of mine, the prosecutors, on something, so they had to let me go, and they instead decided to kick me out of the Schengen countries for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you came back to the States.
Came back to the States. People were taking painkillers, Norcos. I was like, fuck it, I'll pop up a Norco, and I was like, wow, this is like better than weed. You know what I mean?
When you say people were taking it, I mean, you're now in your 20s, right?
21, 22.
And the people were who? Like, how were you friends with these people? Were you in school with them? Or were they just people that you messed around with, hung out with?
Yeah, just my old friends. And then people that like to party because I had my own condo with my cousin. And I was actually started to sell marijuana medically because that was a thing at that point. And I was selling like weight to like clinics and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good, making good money. But then I started to get into the painkillers because people that I sold weed to basically partied at my house sometimes, right? So I got into painkillers and then eventually heroin. Yeah.
When you got into painkillers, was it real pills? Obviously.
Yeah, there was no pressed fentanyl
Yeah,
at that point.
it was all like
it was all
actual
legit.
Prescription, legitimate.
Legit Norcos, Opanas, they don't have those
I know
anymore.
Aponis. My girlfriend's told me about those extensively.
Yeah, they're very,
Very-
I don't want to say anything.
No, they're strong.
Yeah, they're very strong. It's like an oxy, but a different kind of high.
Yeah, right.
So it's just as strong as an 80.
Okay,
Oxy 80, a 40 of
just as
Opana.
strong. Oh, wow. And Oxy 80s were like very strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, down the line, you got, you said then it was straight heroin. Why heroin?
People were just using heroin and
Black tar heroin.
oh, you know what happened? Actually, my cousin moved out because he didn't like the lifestyle we were living. He didn't get into any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like the pills, all the weed, all the partying. So he moved out, and I had a couple friends come in that were drug dealers
He moved out from where?
from our condo.
Oh, he moved out from your house. He lived with you and then
yeah,
he moved out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I needed somebody to cover the other half of the rent. And I had a couple guys who were drug dealers selling coke, meth, ecstasy.
So it was perfect
Weed.
for you.
I guess so. At the time, I was kind of nuts. I still am, but I keep it under wraps now. So
Okay. So when somebody moved in, they had heroin, and did you?
well, I was doing heroin right before that, but it was just the kids that brought the painkillers eventually had heroin as well. So I just tried it, and I was on this kick.
Smoked it?
Yeah, smoked it. Yeah,
Black tar.
black tar, the balloons, the brown. You know, I can mention drug dealers' names, but I'm not going to.
No, you don't need to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they were famous ones that everybody knew about.
Okay.
The balloons had certain names and stuff, but we don't have to get into that.
But I mean, it's something to know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Now I did end up using intravenously eventually. Yeah,
how long after?
a few years after my last year using heroin was intravenous.
How long did you shoot for?
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
Then I went to rehab. My family stepped in. My father found out. I was tweaking at the time. I was doing benzos and meth and everything like recreationally, like on occasion.
How old were you at this time?
24, 5.
Still not diagnosed with anything?
25, 26 actually. In fact, with the meth, once the meth started, I kept going to psych wards and jails, and they diagnosed me bipolar, but I thought it was meth induced at the time.
Was it?
Maybe like how extreme it was, the meth contributed, but I think the genetic predisposition was unleashed because the meth brought it out. Because before that,
Do
I
you
didn't
think
have
you
any.
wouldn't have if you had never gotten into meth?
Maybe not. I might have the genetic predisposition, but nothing would have triggered it.
Okay.
Possible.
Possible.
Yeah.
So this is around 24.
25.
And you were already in the meth.
I was doing it recreationally with my drug dealer roommates.
Recreationally, as in like just partying, but
Yeah, just whenever
there wasn't a lot of
busted
problems yet.
out. No, I was still heavily into heroin and marijuana still, because no matter what drugs I did, I always had my bag of weed. I always had to have my weed.
Did you ever experience psychosis during these times?
With meth? Yeah.
How about with marijuana?
Eventually, yeah.
Was it concentrate marijuana? Was it flower, bud? What?
Dabs, which is concentrated wax. even regular marijuana. I was in Sweden again at one point on vacation, and I thought the FBI was watching me and stuff like that. And it was just I had quit heroin, transitioning into meth, but not really doing meth yet. Almost there.
So it was dabs.
It was just it was flour in Sweden because they don't even have that stuff.
Right. Okay. So then you just mentioned the whole thing about the FBI. Usually when we hear about people being paranoid that the FBI is watching them, it often, we hear it's drug induced a lot of times.
A lot of times.
A lot of times it's meth, but these days,
marijuana too.
Marijuana, I'm hearing more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. Marijuana can definitely unleash a psychotic episode in anybody. No, I don't want to say anybody, but people who have some sort of, again, genetic predisposition.
Okay, and the marijuana that you were getting, or the dabs, or the concentrate, all that, were you getting it from a dispensary?
Well, at that time, I knew the people who sold to the dispensary.
Okay.
So I was getting it directly from them.
Okay, but do you think that there's a lot of youngsters that will often find me on social media, and they'll tell me that if I even do one video about depersonalization or derealization, they zero in. And then if I put my phone number out there, my phone's blowing up for like weeks. Mm-hmm. Youngsters, 12, 14, 16, telling me that you can tell they've already done the research and know what derealization and depersonalization is to a certain extent, but they're also questioning me because since I'm talking about it, is this real? Is this what's happening? And I'll ask them to describe what's happening. And they say, I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience looking at my life as if it's a movie. Mm-hmm. And so I think to myself, like...
That's psychosis.
It is psychosis. Yeah. It's psychosis in the making, if anything, because they're so young, right? And if that's happening already at that young of an age, there is a great possibility. Because usually, like, a lot of mental health... Let me back up. Sometimes... quite often, if not, not always, but bipolar isn't even really diagnosed until somebody's like 20, about 19, 20.
Right,
20.
yeah. It's not, in young people, you don't really.
Sometimes you see in a lot of in some young people that there is signs of it, or some kids are already experiencing bipolar ups, down. There's obviously a lot of kids that are given Adderall at a very young age, when they're super young, for different reasons, but these kids find me and they're asking me about derealization, depersonalization. And what do you think my answer is to them? I say to them, listen, I'm not going to sit here and condone this. I'm not going to tell you to continue to do this. I do have a book actually from somebody that had these experiences. It's about derealization, depersonalization, and how it was induced from THC, and I tell them, just go read this. And they often ask the same question: is it going to go away? I tell them, if you keep doing it, it's not going to go away.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse and worse. If you stop now, you have a greater chance and possibility of it going away.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. There are people that have permanent
damage,
damage and psychosis. Like it follows them for the rest of their life. We've seen those people. We've both seen those people, yes. Even out in the street, like in certain areas of Orange County, just walking around
or LA or anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. We've seen that. So that's definitely
screaming at the sky, having conversations with themselves.
Absolutely. And I had gotten pretty much to that point. So it is possible to recover as well. It just depends on, I don't know if it's genetics or divine intervention or what it could possibly be, but I don't want it to sound bleak and hopeless. Like, you're right. The earlier you tackle it, and you prevent the things that are causing it, there's a better chance of recovery.
Absolutely.
The longer you do it, the worse it gets, and maybe you can't go back at some point. So why even risk it? You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree with you more. So if this was already happening with you during your THC escapades, right? Then you got into meth, and when you get into meth, and often, and if you say that you're diagnosed with bipolar, do you agree that you really do have bipolar?
Of course, because
there's some people that get diagnosed and they hate the fact, they don't want to take their meds, or they'll take them here and there. But they also entertain the idea of using substances like stimulants, like meth, or more marijuana, because in a sense, it gives them some relief.
Right. The thing with that is, yes, I'm definitely bipolar because I've had manic episodes in recovery.
Yes. And we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So, what was I going to say? I'm drawing a blank. I was going to say something. I forgot what I was.
When people entertain the idea of using more, when
Oh,
you
that's
have a
right.
mental-
People like who are bipolar like stimulants and things like marijuana, but mainly stimulants.
Can you kind of expand on that? Why do they like it?
Because it brings you into mania, and mania feels very good. I'm not going to lie. It feels like a meth high, just even on its own without the meth.
And in mania, many different episodes get created. Often there's a lot of grandiose
Oh, yeah.
thought process, or even they'll even amplify what they're thinking or what's going on in their head, as in like they're the rulers or the leaders of the world, or they're going to be the most
yeah.
successful people ever, or they're already in their own
So
mind.
you're familiar with all that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let me explain something that was very interesting for me. I mean, obviously, you and I have both worked in centers that are co-occurring dual diagnosis, addiction, alcoholism, and mental health type centers.
Absolutely.
When I was first getting my feet wet, I worked at a place that they probably shouldn't have been taking clients that were dual diagnosis, because I don't think that they were equipped. I don't think they had the right kind of therapists that could actually deal with that population, but they were bringing them in. Right
Okay.
now, I was just running the detox. So in 1 week's time, I watched them bring in 3 different people. And what was really interesting for me during this time is those 3 different people all came from different parts of the country, right? This was in Southern California where I was working. One of them came and said that he was the Antichrist.
The beast.
The beast.
I used to say that.
The other one came and said he was Christ. The other one said that he was God.
Yeah, that's so you want to talk about that?
A little bit, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
What was fascinating to me is like these guys come in. One of them was a brilliant guitar player. Like I'm telling you, like he brought his own guitar and he would just sit there and jam out at the fireplace.
Sounds like you're talking about me now.
Right. And then the other ones, you could tell like a couple of them were pretty like on their way to, if they didn't get in front of this, like it was going to get to the point where they could get shot out. Right. Now, because there was this huge courtyard in the back, I had a lot of time to be able to like be with these guys, and I would go on walks with them. And what was fascinating to me in talking to them was I'd ask them, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Ohio." "Where are you from?" "I'm from Kentucky." "Where are you from?" "I'm from South Carolina." So then as I asked more questions, I was like, "So what was your upbringing? Were you in the church? Did you go, like, were you Christian? Were you Catholic?" "Christian." "Catholic." "Christian." "Oh, okay." It made me, what I started to realize is, and we hear this about, in some recovery circles a lot of times, that I grew up with a punishing God, right? And so I would listen to these people, how I thought to myself, in all of their mania and in all of their psychosis or psychotic episodes, they've now come to the conclusion that they themselves are actually like Jesus, or that they're the
course.
Antichrist.
I have to be.
And where are they from? They're from Middle America, where it's the Bible Belt, right?
Right.
So it would only make sense that at some point, like between probably doing sinful things that only sinners would do, like drugs, right? They now have convinced themselves that, you know what, I'm above all of this. You can't put me in a religious box. I'm actually above you. I am God. I am Jesus. I am the Antichrist. And so I would have these interesting conversations with them. And I would sometimes even say, like, that's really interesting that you say that, because the other day he told me he's Jesus Christ. So I'm a little bit confused in that. I would just like have fun with them. We had some great conversations. What was gnarly though is one of them he AMA'd, and about a month and a half later we were down in Aliso Beach. And I turn the corner and I hear someone talking to themselves, and I'm like, I know that voice. I ran around the corner and it was him.
Oh, wow.
And he had gone homeless on the beaches. Like he was intentionally living very comfortably. He even told me he barely remembered me, because he only met me for a little while, a short amount of time. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little. So as far as you went, like you were doing meth for how long?
Almost 3.5 years, something like that. 3 to 3.5 years.
And at first it was recreational.
Well, once I quit heroin, I had gained a lot of weight once I got out of rehab. And then I said I was going to do meth for a few weeks, turned into 3.5 years. religiously every day.
And the rehab you went to is not the place that we both
No,
went
no, no. I've been to like 9 rehabs.
to. Okay, you were going to treatment a lot.
Yeah, I was.
Not embracing recovery?
Not at all. I absolutely, and I don't mind talking about a 12-step fellowship because I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I hated AA. Was against it.
Were most of the places that you were going to sending you to 12 steps?
All of them. See, now it's very liberated. As you know, in the recovery world,
Yes.
they don't even want you talking about it at some places. But back then it was like the groups were like, "Who's your sponsor? What step are you on? What are you doing?" Like this and that. And I just hated AA, everything about it at the time. I love AA today, but at the time I was just very resistant to the whole thing.
Okay, so after going to all these different centers, what finally brought you to? Did you get sober in the same place we got sober at and stay sober?
Yeah, yeah.
What was different there?
Ooh, that center was very different than any other center I've ever been to.
Did you have a lot of ups and downs?
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where I was just like, I didn't want to live anymore. And I was angry, homicidal, suicidal.
How long did you stay there?
6 months.
Did you learn to have respect for the program director, the guy that ran the place?
Oh, no. We left on bad terms. I eventually made amends and he became almost like a best friend to me.
You left on bad terms because you just didn't want to see his way?
Yeah, it wasn't like so much that I didn't want to see his way. And, I don't want to say too much crazy things, but I felt like he was picking on me because I've sat in some groups where they literally sat me down and were like, "You're a bum, you're a piece of shit."
In his house?
Yeah, not like using the terms "piece of shit," but we're not gonna say who or what. But there was like a lot of clients there, and one group was literally just them telling me how like horrible of a person I was, basically.
Were you acting horribly?
Well, I was acting out, not doing anything I was supposed to, argumentative. I can admit to all that, sure. But I had gone through, at that point, I had also gone through my benzo addiction after the meth addiction, and then alcoholism, full-blown drinking every day after the benzo addiction. So I was coming off, and then I had a psychosis again. So I was fucked up.
Yeah.
I was like 32 years old, and I'm like, I don't have anything to my name. I'm 32. How am I going to make it? Am I going to survive? My parents were definitely like cutting me off or trying to move on with their lives and
You left on bad terms, but did you stay sober when you left?
yes, I did.
Why?
Because he shikastmono, as they say.
He broke you down
me
to
down.
understand like you got to stay sober no matter
Yeah,
what.
he broke me. He destroyed my ego, broke me down, and then I was able to build my life back up with the grace of God.
Where did you go when you left his house?
I moved to Anaheim to a crack motel and started working down the street. I stayed sober, but it was
Stayed
cheap.
sober at a crack?
Yeah.
You stayed in a motel?
Yeah, stayed in a motel.
Oh, like that was your residency.
That was my rest because I don't have any credit, so I couldn't get a place
How
to
did you
live.
afford that?
I worked at a bar/hotel down the street.
And stayed sober.
Yeah.
I commend you.
Oh yeah, I was miserable because I still hated AA and refused to go. At that time,
was there
dry.
no temptation to get high?
Of course,
There
But
was?
but I was like, I'm not going back to a treatment center like that again.
Oh, you were more afraid of being
I was
put
more
back in
afraid of
treatment.
going back to treatment than I was of not just that, because of how I felt in that treatment center. I didn't want to go back to that feeling. I was spiritually dead and defeated.
I do remember those times. I didn't exactly know like what all went down. I think you had told me that you had problems with him, but why did you end up making amends and how long after?
Because I realized he kept me sober. I saw the method to his madness, right? I understood.
He truly had a method to his madness.
Oh yeah,
he was a one of a kind.
I mean, the dude is like probably one of the best in the country, I would say.
I'm telling you, if I didn't have him, I
Yeah.
don't know that I would have stayed sober.
Absolutely.
If he didn't teach me.
Yeah.
And I met him once before when I was 30, and I met him again when I was 36.
I know the story.
And I
yeah.
do not think it happened by accident.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that.
He was like a father figure for me and a recovery coach.
Absolutely. A mentor and everything.
Greatest
and he really
mentor.
cared.
He really cared.
It's
One of the
insane how much he cared.
Truly one of the purest souls
Yeah.
that I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah. He
To
was
the day he died.
unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I have to say anything about it. But what was
So then you went back and made amends. How long after?
I then moved to Iran for 7 months from the crack motel.
You did?
Yeah. I talked to you there once.
In Iran.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I remember you were in Sweden or something.
Yeah, then I went to Sweden after that because Iran is just not a place you want to live.
Okay.
I went there because I couldn't afford to live anymore, so I moved in with my grandparents in Iran.
How was Iran?
Just horrible.
Because the conditions of the country?
It's basically, isn't it a third world country, right?
At this point, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, so
It might be even like lower level than third world.
yeah, it's horrible. So I went to Sweden because I had family there after 7 months in Iran. And I was alone again, very isolated, very alone for about 6 months. By this time, I had almost 2 years sober, dry,
Okay.
right? And I was in Sweden alone. And I was so lonely that I was like, let me try AA out here. I also hated AA here in Orange County because people did pick on me in AA because I was miserable. What's going on, Smiley, when I looked sad and stuff like that, and everyone picking me apart. So I hated everybody in AA, and I hated AA.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was in Sweden. I'm like, I'm lonely. Let's make some friends or find a girl to meet. Maybe it's different out here. Maybe it's not they're not as mean in AA.
Sure.
In AA, they're not mean. It was just my problem, and they were just goofing off, joking around, but I was very sensitive.
Your perception.
Yeah, my perception. So anyways, I went back to AA. One of my good friends that I met in the program there forced me to get a sponsor. I didn't even want a sponsor. Didn't want to do
Sweden.
the steps. Yeah. The international group. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got a sponsor, and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to just do this correctly. So I did go through the steps, and I got to say that black cloud that's been following me my whole life, gone really after this. I had a psychic change. I was
spiritual experience.
Absolutely. I was like, holy shit.
Now you, in Sweden, you speak that language?
Inte så mycket, which means not so much.
Okay. But when you're there, then you kind of just adapt.
Well, no, everybody speaks English in Sweden. It's their second language.
Oh, so then the meetings and stuff, it was all in English?
It was the international group that I went to.
So they'll speak English?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So then you had the spiritual experience, the black cloud disappeared, and then you came back to the States?
I did after I went into psychosis, and I used to blow you up all the time from Sweden.
Well, why did you go into psychosis? Do you know?
Yeah, I had initially... I had gained a lot of weight, so I lost about 60 pounds. I wanted to lose 5 or 10 more pounds. I gained it all back, obviously. But I had lost it, and then I went on this fruit and vegetable diet, which put too much stress, just raw fruits and vegetables. And the thing about bipolar is if you don't get proper sleep, proper nutrition, proper exercise, you don't have a schedule, it's very sensitive. You could go into mania even if you're taking your meds, right? Things have to be in order. So I was basically starving myself and working out and doing all these things. And I just to deal with the stress, you go into mania because when you're in mania, you can handle any sort of mood, or you think you're above everything anyway.
Do you think at the time you were entertaining the mania?
Oh yeah, I always entertain the mania because it's so much fun, even though it's very harmful.
Yeah. Because you say things that eventually you regret.
You come out of it and then you hit that low.
And how long did that mania last?
That lasted for months. I even came back here.
So what does that mean? Like you were able to still sleep at night, but the next morning you wake up and you're just in a manic.
You sleep for 2 or 3 or 4 hours.
So you're not really sleeping much.
Yeah, no.
Which then puts more fuel on the fire of the mania.
Absolutely, it gets worse and worse and worse, to the point where I thought the birds were government drones. I thought that.
This isn't recovery. This isn't
sober.
sobriety.
I was sober, yeah.
Were your meds off?
No, I was still taking the same meds and everything, and nothing had changed.
Were these bipolar meds?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it was just putting too much stress on myself.
Did you stop doing that diet?
Yes, but by that time I was so psychotic that...
It didn't even matter what you were eating.
No, it didn't matter anymore. So I came back to the States in a psychosis. And after about 2 years, after COVID... everything. I was in.
Did COVID fuck with you?
Not really. I don't know. I don't really.
You didn't care?
No. Is that weird?
COVID created a lot of mental health.
I know. Well, I don't want to. To me, it's I don't panic when shit goes down. Is the point I was going to make.
I think COVID, for people that might experience schizophrenia, COVID might have definitely.
Well, I had my theories.
Okay.
So yeah. But I came back here, saw my psychiatrist a bunch of times, quadrupled the dosage of my meds, maxed me out on my bipolar med, and I slowly started. And it took some time.
Slowly decreased?
no, slowly increased. The mania slowly decreased. Eventually, it went away. I remember I used to bump into you, and I could tell, if you don't mind me saying, at the time, you were like,
I don't mind.
Yeah, you were like, no, bro. Like,
what do you mean?
I would try to like talk to you because I came at you aggressively, everybody aggressively.
Yeah.
But say things that were just completely delusional and grandiose,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of rubbed you off in a way. Like, why is this guy obsessed with me at the time? It kind of felt like. It's like
I don't know that I really thought, why is he obsessed with you? I was worried about you, and I didn't. Truth be told, I didn't know if you were sober.
Yes, thank you for bringing. I didn't
You were
wanna
behaving
say,
in a way where I thought maybe he relapsed and he's just living the lie.
Yeah, exactly. Because I had.
But I do believe you wholeheartedly that you never relapsed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you? You have no reason to lie about it.
People do get into that form of hypermania. It's called.
And then another thing, in watching you come out of that and improve and change and even make your wrongs right. It makes me have that much more respect for mental health.
Right.
Because there's a lot of times because I was never diagnosed with anything, although if anything, like if they were, I might qualify for ADD or ADHD because I seem to have had the symptoms a lot of times throughout my life. But there's a lot of times that, I thought to myself, maybe that person's not really as depressed as they say. Maybe they're not a manic depressive person. Maybe they really don't have that anxiety. Maybe they just need a little more God. Maybe this whole bipolar thing, maybe people are getting misdiagnosed, and sometimes they truly are.
They are sometimes. It's over. Like everybody's bipolar now in recovery, right? I work in mental health and substance use, and everybody says they're bipolar. And then I ask them, has this ever happened? And they're like, no, I've never gone like that. And I'm like, well, then you might not even be, you might have BPD or something. You know what I mean?
So, but another thing, like I started to realize is like, I definitely do believe that people's chemicals are different within their brains. And there are some people that have highs, some people that have lows. There are people that carry a lot of trauma. A lot of their trauma could definitely bleed over into things that then progress into being a mental health.
Absolutely.
You just said BPD.
Absolutely.
I've had a lot of experience with people that are BPD. Some diagnosed.
I've been diagnosed with BPD, but and that's why about 10 to 20% of bipolar people also have BPD.
Sure.
I might fall into that. And if it is, that could explain why the hypermania, why I literally think I'm the reincarnated Christ, why I literally think I'm going to be the next famous thing in America or the world.
Right.
Why I think the birds are drones and my dad's in the CIA, for example. Like things that don't even make sense, right? And every helicopter, which is weird. A lot of helicopters showed up when I was tweaking or bipolar, but I know they have nothing to do with me.
Yeah. A lot of helicopters showed up when I was tweaking too. When I finally did get arrested, everywhere. I thought, so they were watching me. But really, there was no helicopter that was watching.
Well, you never know. No, I'm just kidding.
Never know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I remember getting locked up one time, coming off a mean meth bender, and I was laying on a bottom bunk in OC jail. I look up and somebody had engraved on the thing, even though they say you're paranoid, doesn't mean they're not watching. I was like, oh my God.
Well, technically, everything's monitored to some extent.
Sure.
But not the way it's singled out.
Yeah, not the way it's. And a lot of times when my conversation with, and some people say I shouldn't say this, but when I have talked to people that are in meth-induced psychosis, they say the feds are after me. I think you might be working with them. I'll tell them, are you breaking federal laws?
Right.
Because the FBI, like, even if you're breaking some federal laws, they really don't go after you unless, like, you're major.
Yeah. Or if they think you could be some threat to something.
Sure. To society as a whole.
Yeah, or something. Sure. But obviously, that's not the case. I'm still here and kicking, so they didn't do anything. So they weren't there. Most likely. I mean, I say most likely. Here's the weird thing about the bipolar and the psychosis. Even when you're good, 5% of you still thinks like maybe some of that stuff was real.
I'm sure.
Because it's happened. It was part of your experience in life.
Sure.
So there's always that, it's there.
A lot of times when people are in psychosis, they're so convinced that what is happening. If they try to make an effort to have other people understand and convince them, some people will feel bad for them and just say, okay, and agree with them.
Sure.
Some people will tell them, no, it's not real. You need to break out of that thought process.
Right.
But no matter what, if they're convinced and they try to convince and other people aren't buying into it, they still have that idea or thought that, well, I know what I know.
And they think you're in on it by disagreeing because it's so obvious to us when
Yeah.
we're in it,
Yeah.
even though it's not there. And then we think anybody who gaslights us, as it seems
Sure.
like, is in on it, is part of the conspiracy against you.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, me
Especially
too.
being an interventionist and going nationally across the country and seeing so many different people. It's in meth psychosis.
Right.
In meth psychosis. When I see it, and here's my job, I have to try to find these people, sometimes homeless, sometimes shacked up in their parents' home somewhere, whatever. But you're going to bring an interventionist in? Well, he works with them too. He's definitely a fed.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Any sort of authority figure, sure.
Sure. So then I have to like creatively try to get through to them and let them know, actually, I'm a former meth user too.
Yeah.
So then they'll start denying, well, I don't even use meth. Well, I don't, I'm drugs aren't my problem. I'm like, okay, well then now let's see how we can deal with this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the most beautiful things that I witnessed with you was your transformation of coming out of the mania and normalizing.
Yeah.
You're in our group in a sense. Like you are in our group. There's a group of us that come together often and we do recovery together.
Sure.
We've all gone out and eaten together. We've been in recovery circles. We've been in places where people are speaking about recovery, sharing stories and things like that. You're there.
Yeah.
You're there.
I work in recovery.
You work in recovery. You are now a case manager. Or are you a case manager?
I'm a group facilitator.
Group facilitator. You work in mental health facilities and in dual diagnosis, substance abuse, and mental health facilities.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they're blessed to have a guy like you with the massive amount of experience that you have and have had, like self-disclosure in your own life.
Right.
You bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this because I didn't know if it would rub my work off in the wrong way. But I kind of feel like in my groups, I am this transparent in the groups, and I get very good feedback from clients and people who work there. So it's okay. Like if I was in finance or something, I probably would never do this podcast. But because I feel like my experience in life can contribute to helping somebody else in the same field, it's okay to be transparent and put myself out there.
Well, let it be known that my girlfriend, who works with a lot of people, she even holds you in high regards. She has a lot of people that have major mental health that she tries to deal with, and often she's stumped or doesn't know how to get something across to them. And she often says your name, like she says, I really like Michael. Maybe we should have so-and-so talk to Michael, because truly I think sometimes what your experience will touch their experience and you can understand them best and be able to get through to them. So what you're doing is great. I want you to know, I believe you're doing God's work. You truly are.
Thank you.
And I hear the way that you share and the way that you talk. You're no dummy. Like besides the fact that you're educated, you come from the heart. Like you definitely, you've gone through a lot. And so I love that about you too. And I see you continue to try to grow and try to do different for yourself. I want to ask you real quick. Do you think that some people are over medicated, and what can be done about that?
What can be done about that is you can always advocate for yourself as a client and talk about that. But yes, I do believe that just like anything else, people are overprescribed things, over medicated. I've tried every medication in the book before I became stabilized. Right. And I had adverse effects, side effects from taking psychotropic meds. Right. But, and then I'm just lucky. Maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's whatever it is, but I'm stabilized on the right medication. If you're not on the right medication, it could do harm at the same time.
Do you think speaking for yourself, because I'm not going to say like, do you think all humans that are on medication for any type of mental health, do you think you yourself will get to a point ever in your life where you can reduce your medications or even one day not be on them at all? And if you were not on them, what do you think that would look like?
Okay. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea, because a lot of people who take medications are like, I'm not going to take this at some point and soon.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, that's dangerous, because
I've seen it become very dangerous.
Yeah, that's very dangerous. So
the mania can come back, many different things. Highly depressive disorder.
It might be like, it's possible that you could live without medication, but I'm looking at it like a 1 or 2% possibility. If you have the intense bipolar that I have, if I don't take my medication, I'll walk in with a different name. It's like split personality. I'll have a nickname I use. We know people like that, right? So why fuck with it? Like,
Yeah.
take your medication so you can live a normal life. Like I have a nice place I live in. I have a nice car. I have a couple degrees. You know what I mean? Like, you can do everything that any normal person can do, even better, because you have that energy, you have that drive, you have that potential, and now you can channel it and into something productive, right? Now, that's with medication. Why is there this stigma? Like, I got to take my medication. Yeah, you got to take your medication.
Stigma from the individual that has to take the meds?
Yeah,
because I was going to ask
they
you,
don't
like some
it.
of the people that end up in some of the homes that I've had, a lot of time their families will say, can you just make sure that they're taking their medication? And really, like the types of homes I have, we are not supposed to be on top of their meds.
Right.
They need to responsibly be taking them.
Well, that's when I said.
Why do some people not want to take their meds?
Because they don't like the way it makes them feel initially before they get used to it. They'd rather be in mania. Some people on the low key, a little manic feels better. I'm still trying to figure out why people are so opposed to it, because you have to take a pill every day. They don't like it.
I think some people
And
don't like their condition.
Yeah, that too. I was going to say they don't like telling themselves every time they take the pill, I have this mental health problem. Right. So I'm okay with it. I had acceptance, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about acceptance all the time. Accept that you have a mental health condition and tackle it, right? Don't just make it about, I don't like the pill. It's like people who don't like AA. It's like, well, it keeps you sober and gives you a good life. So even if you don't like parts about it, just suck it up and do it. I go to work every day. It's not.
You're still living a normal life.
Yeah, I still. Sometimes I don't want to go to work, but I still go. So there's some things I don't like to do. It's called being an adult. Right.
Right.
So why not? Why risk all this stuff? Why nitpick it? Not everything has to be tailor made to your ego. Right. Sometimes you got to step outside of self and step outside your, bubble. And
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
That part right there, that part just stood out to me.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's our egos that'll take us down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's about really truly seeking the soul and like doing what our soul tells us rather than what this head tells us.
Yeah.
As our beautiful mentor, God rest his soul, used to always say,
right,
don't spend too much time in here. It's a dangerous neighborhood. Neighborhood.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, this has really been an enjoyable conversation with you. I've wanted to have you on here a long time. I think before, when you were hoping to come on, you were in a different mindset and you wanted to come with something different. But look at you now, like you're a whole different guy. I know some of the places that you mentioned that you work, to me off camera. They're lucky to have you. Truly lucky to have you. Like, keep doing what you're doing. We've had some good teachers. I believe that you're out there doing some great work. Is there anything that you would like to put out into the universe for people that are struggling with mental health, with addiction, with alcoholism, anything like that? Go ahead and right here.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on one last thing. If you're having things like gaining weight with medications and things of that nature, it's better to live a productive, happy life and be a little bit overweight versus be skinny, sucked up, and just a crazy person, basically. So what I wanted to say is there is hope for any condition that you have. If you have the intention and you put in the work, you can achieve anything. It doesn't matter. These mental health diagnoses, substance use, you can tackle those issues and you can come out of them like so many of us have. There's so many of us that you've seen, and you can be a part of it. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on Pejji's Recovery Corner. Again, this is a recovery podcast. Please subscribe to the channel, like it, share it everywhere. We are just out here trying to spread a good message of hope to anybody and everybody out there that has questions, that's wondering. Also, if you ever need to get a hold of me, my phone number is on here. If you want to get a hold of Michael, you can get a hold of me and I'll put you in direct contact with him so that he could possibly counsel, talk to you, help any of you or your loved ones in any capacity. I'm sure that you would be okay with that.
Sure, right? Absolutely.
Okay. And until we meet again, much love to everybody. Over and out. Love you.
Thank you.